Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to explain to you the system of hormones in a very simple way so you can understand why just testing your testosterone is nonsense and the number on your blood test does not mean anything if you don't know the values of other hormones. So I'm going to use these units so you don't get confused, so I don't need to pronounce it every time I pronounce a number. Testosterone is going to be in nanograms per deciliter. E2, which is estradiol, is going to be in picomoles per liter, and SHBG is going to be in nanomoles per liter. So let's go. For example, you have testosterone of 1000 nanograms per deciliter, yeah? And now you need to check your SHBG to know if you have normal amount of free testosterone, because SHBG is basically a sex hormone binding globulin. So basically what it does, it's a sex hormone, it's a globulin that binds to sex hormones and makes them unavailable. So the more SHBG you have means it will mean that the less free testosterone for your body to use you will have. Now, the values of SHBG that are considered normal depend on several factors. For example, if you have 1500 nanograms of testosterone and you have 40 nanomoles of SHBG, it is normal. It's not as bad. If you have 600 testosterone and have 40 SHBG, it's bad. So that's why I wrote an interval here between 20 and 50, a reference range, and here is like 50 plus. In very rare cases, it can be normal to have a bit more than 50, but it's very rare again. So if you have high SHBG, more than 50 nanomoles, you will have low free testosterone, so you need to fix that problem. You need to decrease SHBG. So what if you have normal SHBG, optimal SHBG, depending on, relative to every other hormone you have? That means you will have higher free testosterone. Now, what can happen to free testosterone? Free testosterone can go in three ways. It can stay as free testosterone and just act as free testosterone. It can get converted to DHT, which is dihydrotestosterone, through 5-alpha reductase enzyme. You do not have to remember that name. DHT is basically a very, very active form of testosterone. So every effect that testosterone gives, DHT will give it in like 10 times more. Of course, it's not exactly like very active testosterone, but it does give very strong effects of confidence, of libido, of drive, of energy, of masculinity, basically. A lot of brainwashed idiots say that DHT after puberty is useless. They are stupid. Do not listen to them. DHT is never useless, and your body will never waste energy and waste resource to produce something it doesn't need. So nothing in our body is useless. So if you're, well, okay, I'll explain it a bit later. And it can convert to E2, estradiol, through aromatase enzyme. You also don't have to remember that name. Now, we will focus here on E2, on estradiol, because that's the hormone you can control in many ways. You can control it physiologically, you can control it psychologically, you can also affect it by changing your social environment, even so. So what happens here? Logically, if you have more of the E2, so more free testosterone converts to E2, that will logically mean that, so if your E2 is high, you'll have less free testosterone and less DHT. And if you have less conversion, so less E2, you'll have more free testosterone and more DHT. So what is considered low or high? I gave, again, approximate reference range here. It's not always the case. And it also depends on your testosterone levels. So for example, if you have 350 free testosterone levels and your E2 is 130, 120, it can actually be normal. But if you have, again, 600, 700 total testosterone, let's say free testosterone is like 150 and your estradiol is 110, it's bad. So between 60 and 130, I would say it's a very golden middle, I would say. So yeah, the higher E2 is, the lower DHT, the lower is free testosterone. The same with DHT, the same logic. The higher DHT is, the lower E2 is, and the lower E2 is and the lower DHT is, the higher is going to be your estradiol. But there's a small difference in case of DHT, because if you have lower DHT, so lower activity of 5-alpha reductase, it doesn't necessarily mean you will have significantly more estradiol. Well, usually it's the case, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It means that you will have more free testosterone. So let's say you have the same activity of your aromatase enzyme, the more raw material there is, the more, let's say your aromatase converts 10% of your free testosterone to estradiol. And if you have 100 free testosterone, it will convert to 10 picomoles of estradiol. If you have 200, it's going to be 20. So I think you get what I'm saying. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you will only have higher estradiol. You will also have higher free testosterone. That's why we see brainwashed people who block DHT because of hair loss to have higher free testosterone levels. And, you know, they usually don't show their estradiol levels, which usually will be higher than it should be. Again, this is a very simplified version of reality. It's much more complex than that in our body. There are much more neurotransmitters, neurosteroids, hormones that affect all of these, except for SHBG. It's mainly physiological. Of course, some can affect it. Some neurotransmitters can affect it indirectly, but still, it's mainly physiological. Anyway, yeah, this video is for you to understand approximately how it all works, so you can see, maybe find problems yourself in your hormonal blood test and know what problem to prioritize, where to start. So you start from the top and you go to the bottom. So that's basically how it works. I hope you now have a more clear understanding of your hormonal system. So yeah, whenever you're taking your hormones, taking a test, never just test your testosterone. Always test testosterone, SHBG, estradiol, also prolactin. Testing DHT is not really necessary, and, you know, in my experience, it's not really useful, I would even say. Right? So it's a system. Always remember, it's a hormonal system. You need to check all the hormones. So I hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button. There'll be a lot more in future.